So thank you for listening to By the Way, a podcast about contemporary art news, where I present stories about the art world to my co-host that he's probably not heard. My name is Eric. I'm an artist and an art professional here in Stockholm.
And my name is Ando, and I am an artist and a hangabout here in Copenhagen.
Fair enough, I hang about. So today we're going to be talking about Leonardo da Vinci and a flaming bag of dog poop.
Every episode starts with me laughing. Do your name?
That is my point. I'm glad if I can get you to laugh. That's the key part of this whole thing.
A flaming bag of... All right, well, hit me.
All right. No, I'm not going to hit you with a bag of flaming dog poop. All right. So first off, I know you follow art, but how much art news, I'm not sure. So have you heard about this Leonardo da Vinci painting that went up for auction actually yesterday?
I did. It crossed over to The Guardian, which is the newspaper, the online newspaper I read. So that became news beyond the art world, you could say.
Okay. Did you know it sold last night or anything like that? Or
I do. It sold for the record-breaking sum of $450 million. What was it?
Yeah, $450 million and change. I mean,
at that point, 350, 350, 450, 550. It's all the same.
Yeah, so this painting was estimated to go at $100 million. It went for $450, over twice the most expensive work ever sold at auction, which was a Picasso a few years back, and something like 3 or 4 times more than the highest, let's say, old master work, which was a Rubens, and I think that sold for $70 million. So a ridiculously large sum of money. So just a couple quick things about the painting is the painting was kind of lost for a while. It has a really long provenance. It was made in roughly the 1500s. It was a part of a couple collections, got lost for a couple hundred years, kind of popped back up on the scene, was bought for, I think it was 45 pounds because somebody thought it wasn't a Da Vinci, it was another artist's work. And then some American collectors or group of collectors ended up buying it for $10,000 after it might have been contributed to him. And then it most recently came into the hands of a guy, a Russian guy, where he bought it for $127 million just a few years back. I'll give you some more links to some of the background, the provenance, and show notes. But that's kind of important to know how it went from being something to being lost to dirt cheap to $450 million.
45 fucking pounds.
Yeah, right. Add just another zero, and that's what you get today. 450.
That's a lot more zeros.
Oh yeah, I guess if you would write out the zeros instead. But yeah, so there's a lot of skeptics. Or there's a fair share of skeptics on, is this really a Da Vinci work?
I saw Jerry Saltz is on the nay side.
Yeah. That's one of those. Check it out in the show notes because. That's a great little article by him in Vulture magazine. So yeah, you picked up on that. So we'll go ahead and just skim over that. But essentially, there's a lot of people saying, doesn't quite feel like a Da Vinci. There's some compositional issues. It's kind of a little safe for him.
It seems not to follow into some of the other, like there's 20 known paintings. Is that what they said? And it doesn't. Yeah, it seems unique out of those 20.
Yeah, and so normally I wouldn't send you any information on what we were doing, but I did send you a link to the known like 15 or 20 works by Da Vinci and just said, look at these. Even though you didn't know what we were going to talk about. When you look at those, you can see the compositions are much more dynamic. There's always turning torsos or turned heads or such. This one is so plain Jane and straight on, and there's quite a few drawing errors in it.
No background.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add on your feeling initially to the painting?
Not really, because at this point, the only thing I've read is Jerry Saltz's article, and I was like, yeah, that sounds right. So it's total modern jackass. I don't really have any idea. I read something which I was like, makes sense. So I'm really no better than a Fox News listener at this moment. But
I'm a well-informed Fox News listener at this point. No, so this is one of these stories that, yeah, we can easily talk about. But how does this relate to contemporary art news? That's the kind of the part that I want to kind of connect here. And this is where I'm going to start getting into some speculation, maybe making a few connections that are reserved for better journalists than an artist to make.
Such thing. No such thing.
But, I've been reading dozens of articles, and they're overlapping information here. So all this, bunches of show notes on this where you can call me out on any of my BS, but I think I have some pretty good connections here.
This sounds like fun.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, I want to figure out, is this painting a flaming bag of dog poo, or is it something more than that? So the owner of this Da Vinci painting, most recently up until yesterday, was this Russian oligarch named Dmitry Roybolev. Yeah, I can't say his last name. Again, I'm going to butcher it. I apologize to our international listeners.
Pronunciation is not going to be our strong part here.
Articulation, accuracy. But yeah, so he purchased this painting along with a whole bunch of others in 2013 for $127 million via a Swiss art dealer named Yves Bonnier.
Is that the guy who ended up in the New Yorker?
In the New Yorker?
The New Yorker wrote an article about a Swiss art dude who was being sued by a Russian art dude. Is that the one?
Spot on. That 99% sure.
All right, that's about how much I know. So, that's the end of it. But at least I knew something.
So I'm going to call this guy Yves, and I'm going to call the Russian guy Dmitry. Just much easier with the first name. So Yves, he is the Swiss art dealer. He runs, he's set up a couple of these, but one in particular, what are called free ports. They're tax-free havens for importing of goods and holding goods to keep them, from being taxed by any country. And he's kind of known to be kind of criminal.
He's in a lot of hot water, right?
Exactly. So he was the one who facilitated the sale of this Da Vinci along with 37 other paintings to Dmitry back in 2013. Dmitry went on a huge spending spree and spent about $2 billion at that point. So all in one big purchase with this guy, Yves.
Wow.
The reason there's this lawsuit that you talked about that was in the New Yorker is Yves kind of artificially marked up everything a whole bunch. He had purchased the work, this Da Vinci, for $80 million, and then just a few months later bumped it up $45 million and sold it on. And he did that with all the works of these 37.
Isn't that just good capitalism?
There's good capitalism, and then there is some fraud going on as well. I don't know where the line between capitalism and fraud is, but yeah, it's like selling water to hurricane victims and stuff like that. Like you can mark up the price a little bit, but at one point it becomes fraudulent.
Got it.
So yeah, he also took a $25 million commission on the deal instead of $2 million, which is a pretty standard cut as a art middleman. So yeah, he kind of screwed with Dmitry. But then Dmitry, he's a Russian oligarch for a reason. Have you heard anything about this guy?
Not aside from that article I read, which was at least a year ago. So I knew he was what's the correct term? He was butthurt about the deal. And
as he should be.
and he was suing the shit out of Yves. He was suing the shit out of Yves, and then there was his wife was involved somehow too, or something. Yeah.
So Dmitry, just as a side note, he got divorced, I think, in 2006 or 2008, and it was the most expensive divorce in history or known history, where she got, I think 4.6 billion in the settlement. So, and he's worth about 8.5 to 10 million or 10 billion, depending on who you ask can win.
That's gnarly.
Yeah, so she's also somehow maybe connected to all this for sure.
And she's a billionaire, so
yeah, a Russian oligarch. No, so not only is Dmitry also a little sketchy. I can give you just a hair background on him. In '96, he was actually arrested for the contract killing of a kind of a competitor slash co-owner of a company that he worked with in Russia.
Are you sure we should be talking about this guy?
Yeah, exactly. I'm protected. I'm behind my keyboard. I'm an internet warrior.
All right. This is our homie, Dmitry, yeah?
Yeah, Dmitry, exactly. That's why we go by first names here. Not because I can't say his last name. But he only spent 11 months in prison, and then...
For a contract killing? Wow.
Exactly. And then he got acquitted of it all by the Russian Supreme Court, essentially. So, yeah, he's not exactly a clean individual, and he put pressure on the justice minister in Monaco. And obviously a lot of people know Monaco's kind of the tax shell, tax haven kind of place in Europe. So the justice minister worked with Dmitry. Voluntarily, he got paid off on the side. And the reason that Dmitry asked him to get involved was to arrest Yves.
Wow.
Now, just in September, the justice minister resigned because of pressure that he was going to be removed from office because of the scandal around him and Dmitry. How is this all connecting to art? Yeah, it's crazy because this guy is just a piece of shit. And these are not all, but this is what the uber elite people are in the art world often. You can look at the Podestas if we don't want to be, partisan and can, say it's all this the Russian scandal stuff. But, the Podestas, they're huge art collectors. And right now they're in, a whole bunch of shit with the Robert Mueller and the U.S. government and investigations. So, this is not a political issue. I think it's a corrupt, I'm super wealthy issue.
Mm-hmm. This is a 1%er issue.
Yeah, this is the 0.11 of the 1%. But then, have you heard about the Paradise Papers?
Yes, I have.
Okay. For the listeners that haven't, really quickly, it was a financial document released by some hackers.
A law company's papers, yeah.
Exactly. On what island was that? Was it the Bahamas?
Bermuda, maybe? I can't actually remember.
Yeah. Anyways, it was leaked documents of Uber Elite's financial dealings, shell companies, all that in there. I think you'll find this kind of fun. One of the people in those documents that had a shell company set up was Bono of U2.
I saw that.
Did you hear see the name of the company that he worked with?
No, I didn't. I just saw that he owned part of a mall in Lithuania or some shit like that.
Yeah, you know what the name of the enterprise was? It was called Nude Estates. Classy.
These rich people really know how to have a good time.
Yeah, and then you have this other kind of celebrity artist in Spain named Jose Maria Cano that was also found in this the Paradise Papers of kind of doing some tax fraud, but he's also that's another show. But he artificially might be inflating his prices by selling work to himself through his own shell company and artificially raising the price of his own artwork.
His anti-capitalist artwork.
Exactly right. check out his work online. He did a whole bunch of paintings of what are they? They're currencies, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's political figures. It looked like they were from newspapers.
The Forbes Top 100 list, wasn't it?
Yeah. That'll be on the show notes, right?
Yeah, all of this is going to be in the show notes. There's going to be a whole bunch of show notes. So anybody who wants to call us out on or call me out on this can go through the show notes and dig into it more.
Yeah, and I think it's probably disclaimer time. We're just two donkeys here. We don't really, like. Okay, you've done your research. I haven't, but you can't take us all that seriously. If you really want to do it, then follow the paper trail we've been following. We'll put links up to that.
Exactly. That's all I'm doing. This podcast or this episode is about Da Vinci, but it's also all these speculative things around this one dirty individual.
Got it.
And how he came to acquire it. Why I am a little doubtful that this Da Vinci could be as authentic as it is or as good as it is, because I think this guy is so well connected and has such influence that I am not calling the credibility of Christie's and Sotheby's and the experts, but I think this individual has the influence to be able to influence the art market. This guy also bought a house from Donald Trump in 2008 that came out in the Paradise Papers, I believe, as well. Trump bought this house for like $40 million. This guy, a few years later, bought it for $95 million. So he also is tied to Donald Trump. He's also tied to the Secretary of Commerce in the U.S. right now named Wilbur Ross, who's under investigation for having holdings together in a shipping company. This guy also... Yeah. Exactly. And then this guy is also the guy who bought this Manhattan apartment for $88 million a few years back for his daughter, who was going to live in it like part-time, who was like 22 years old, and set like a new record price per square foot in Manhattan. So this guy throws around bunches of money, super well connected, has a lot to lose, has lots of influence to make gains. I want to say there's much more to the authenticity of this painting beyond what you see when you look at it and what the composition is. And this is where provenance comes into place, and who owns a work comes into place, how it gets marketed at, an auction house, and how corrupt and scandalous that can be.
Well, do we know who bought the painting?
Not yet. As of this morning, I didn't see that. It was bought by a representative, it was bought by an individual who was represented by, Christie's worker, who was the head of the contemporary department. Right. And this work was sold in the contemporary sale instead of the old master sale because they knew they could push the price higher.
Which is strange because it's not
an old
contemporary artwork.
Exactly.
But the thing, it strikes me that one of the big problems, people cry and whine a lot about the art world and money and prestige and stuff. But when art became an asset on the same level that certain types of on the level that certain types of real estate became an asset, on the way that when holding companies, shell companies, when art started being purchased to be held in storage as a way to put 100 million here or 50 million there into a 40 by 40 centimeter package, that's kind of when a lot of trouble, a lot of shit started, because I actually don't really have a problem with very rich people buying really expensive prestige artworks to show them because they're really happy about it. Like I want a Rothko or...
And I think they should. I think if you can afford it, absolutely. I have nothing against rich people on this part. I have a problem against certain rich people the same way I'd have things against certain poor people.
Well, also just when the art does not represent anything but a way to store money.
Yeah, it is. And, something like this piece that sat in a Freeport in Switzerland, it was never coming out of storage.
We may never see it again. I don't know. I mean, unless it goes on auction again.
And if it sticks in private hands, there's no reason at this point for the future owner to challenge its authenticity and have it, studied more or X-rayed. And
no one's going to do that.
Yeah, because it's going to undermine it, and
someone's going to be out $449 million. if it gets debunked.
Well, if it gets debunked, it's back down to 45 pounds.
Yeah, it's some heavy shit.
Yeah, so like I said, this episode is just a lot of speculation. And is this painting a Da Vinci or just a flaming bag of dog poop?
I really wonder. Oh my god, yeah, it's so hard to wrap something like this up because it's so outside of our wheelhouse as well. All I know about this stuff is things I've read. I do follow political news a fair amount, so I have followed up on the Paradise Papers a fair amount, as well as some news about art at that level. But the thing is, like, basically, the fact is we don't really know. We don't really know what's up with these people. We don't really know. They do everything they can to obfuscate and hide what they do, their dealings, all this sort of stuff. And we just have no idea. We don't even know why, because it's not, it doesn't seem like these works then get donated to public collections, or, they don't resurface. There was once upon a time in which philanthropists would amass art collections and then donate them to museums or something like that. This doesn't seem to be the case in these instances.
No, definitely not in this instance. I know that in China, for example, in the last, call it 10 years, quite a few wealthy individuals that have made buckets of money because of the economic upswing there have been amassing large art collections to build personal art museums
right. Or like in South Africa, there's that one that just opened in Cape Town too.
Exactly. And a lot of those are also tax schemes. They're ways to acquire work, amass wealth in a different way, and avoid taxes because they set them up in certain... Prada Foundation in Milan, probably. Yeah. So, even when they do come to a public audience and, the public's allowed to come in, there's still something a little nefarious behind it for some reason. To wrap all this up, all I have to say is, this Da Vinci painting, if it is a Da Vinci painting, which I'm going to say it is very scandalous. Not because of the work itself, but how it came to auction, who most recently owned it, the individual. And that's actually going to add to the value even more than this $450 it just sold for. Because provenance is one thing, but the story with provenance even adds more. That's why the Mona Lisa is what it is. It wasn't quite as famous as it was until it was stolen. In, I think it was 1962. So I have a feeling, regardless of if this painting is Da Vinci or not, is it any good or is it not, it has so much smoke around it that it's going to become iconic almost because of that alone. And that is the scary part of the auction houses having such control over the art market right now. Is they can produce the smoke to make fire. And with this, they did. There's no reason why it needed to... no, I wouldn't say there's no reason why it shouldn't, but there's a lot of odd things that they did to market it and drive up the price, and I don't know.
Right. It's all very... It's not above the boards, most of it. And that's there's just enough information to pique the interest and not enough information to really know what's going on. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, none of this is anything we can even get near. We have no idea.
No, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it comes out that, this was bought by another holding company that was indebted to this guy as a way to bail him out of this, potential loss that he was going to take on this painting by getting ripped off by the Swiss art dealer Yves.
Right.
It's just a shell game of moving money around.
Right.
Moving debts and personal debts as well as financial debts with each other.
Well, in that sense, I can recommend as a wrap up, a game that a company made called Kleptocracy.
I think I've heard of that.
It's an app for your iPhone or iPad and maybe even Android, in which you basically play the game of being a kleptocrat, and you have to move money around and avoid the investigator. And it's actually made by an investigation company. So the tactics for doing it are ones they have investigated. It's called Kleptocracy. I just started playing it. It's a fascinating game.
I want to get on that. Actually, that sounds fascinating. To be honest,
it is.
We should reach out to them and see if they want to be a sponsor of this episode.
That's a great idea. All right, well, let's wrap it up then, huh?
All right, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of By the Way. I hope you figured out whether you're dealing with dog shit or masterpieces here.
And not talking about the host of the show.
There's no answer to that question. So, yeah, we appreciate it. And be sure to check us out on the face of the book and Instagram and Twitter. We're not on Twitter, are we?
Yeah, we're on Twitter.
Okay, on Twitter.
We got a LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and on LinkedIn, and we're all over the place. You can find show notes so you can follow up and read actually informed adults writing with fact-checked processes behind their writing. We would encourage you to do so. And
give us feedback. Call us out on something if we were totally off base.
Mm-hmm. This show
close,
is...
give us a little bit of leeway, but yeah.
Or just yell at us uninformedly.
Sure.
But we would like to engage the public. Absolutely. That's absolutely right. So you can contact us via our website, via all our social media, whatever. You can suggest future topics to talk about. It's all open there. And this also bears mentioning that we are part of a larger platform called Cultural Bandwidth, which is just launching now. It's at culturalbandwidth.com. There's other podcasts, another show I run called The Undergang Armchair, which is conversations with artists. They'll be writing about shows. It's Scandinavia-based. Come check it out.
Excellent. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining me, Ando, on this wild ride of speculation.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you guys next time.